Hey there. Video number two. It took me a little bit to get back here because gosh, so many thoughts and triggers and things. Um, but I'm back and I'm excited for today's topic. It took me a bit to figure out what I was going to talk about, but today I'm going to go through my belief system and kind of build a foundation of where I'm at, where I've been. That'll showcase my journey. And it'll also kind of build a foundation so that you guys can know where I'm at to see if it resonates or not. Um, so yeah, to start, I wanted to, in my last video, I talked about how confusing it was for me to be going through my twin flame journey, my spiritual awakening in general, and then kind of like not know where the truth was. And I'm sure we all can kind of relate to that a bit. And I want to make sure that I say everything I'm about to say in today's video is not to disrespect anybody who is putting content out there. Um, the fact that they have the courage to put content out there and they're doing it based on their own truth, um, I applaud that. And so many people's, videos and content have helped me on my journey. So never would I want to disrespect any of them. But what I will say is, based on my experience, it was very different than what a lot of people's content and videos said about the twin flame journey. So I want to just make sure that another voice is heard, right? And the reason why this is so important is all of our voices right now are super important because we are building a collective understanding of these spiritual experiences. Our planet, as it continues to evolve and as more and more of us are having spiritual experiences like this, no one knows the truth, right? Everybody's experience is just as valid and important, and it creates a larger framework for our society. So I wanted to say that because discernment is such a huge part of not only, my journey, but also just spirituality in general. No matter what spiritual path you are on, discernment is going to be so critical. If it doesn't feel like it fits with you, then it probably doesn't. And there's so many reasons for that. And it's even based on where your consciousness level is, where the other person's consciousness level is. Uh, if you guys are not on the same like vibration, then you just don't vibe, right? And there's so much that plays into that. That really, have any of you ever been kind of like resonating with a spiritual teacher, and then all of a sudden, as you continue to evolve, they just no longer, resonate with you. They don't make sense to you, or their teachings just may not excite you or hit close to home the way that they used to. That means that you and the teacher both are probably evolved in different ways and you no longer match, you're no longer aligned, and that's totally okay. In my journey, that happened with multiple teachers, and I would kind of come back months later and maybe they start resonating again. This is very, very normal, and we need to start kind of being more comfortable with that fluidity and adaptability because we all are figuring this out together. And the reason I say that is because we have to be using our own discernment to figure out who resonates with us, because the spiritual teacher's teachings are only as deep as their own consciousness level. And you're not going to know that personally. You won't know where that spiritual teacher is at in their own evolution. You won't know where their path is taking them. Um, if that path aligns with the path you're supposed to be on, right? So there's so much that goes into this. It's so much more complicated than we could ever know. So discernment has to be used. So that being said, if this doesn't resonate with you, if my belief system doesn't resonate with you, I take no offense to that. I want it to be kind of like out there first and foremost so that you guys can make those decisions for yourself. And if it doesn't feel right, then I'm just not the person for you, and that's okay. Um, so again, my belief system in the past, when I was being raised, I basically had none, right? I was built in a foundation or created with a foundation. Sorry, some tea. My family didn't have like a religious foundation, so neither did I. Spiritual awakening happened, and I found myself blissed out, right? If you've gone through a spiritual awakening, you know what I'm talking about. I could not have been more stoked. I was shocked. I was so confused for a little bit, but at the same time everything felt really right. And I was just blissed out, and I was like, wow, this world is so magical. I can't believe I was sleeping on this for so long. So I remember I had this huge transformative moment where the fact that we are not alone, and the fact that I was experiencing something that was proving that to me, I could not have been more grateful. And so although it was very hard and shocking, I I felt so blessed. So onward I went on my journey. And at that point, I did not know I was on the twin flame journey. I thought I was just randomly going through a spiritual awakening. So I think that's a key part in it. As my journey continued, it became the information was provided to me that I was on a twin flame journey. And that is when I would say it went from blissed out to what? Because everywhere I read, everywhere I went, and everything I experienced with this specific individual, it just didn't feel that like blissed out, awesome experience anymore. It felt like this person who, I confessed my feelings for and was rejected by, now this incredibly blissed out experience that I was having that I was so grateful for was because of this person. And it kind of took away the luster for me for a little bit. I had to heal, of course. But I was just like, well, I thought we were moving past this relationship. And now, as I'm trying to move past this relationship, it is pulling me back, right? And now, this new belief system that I have that I was pretty excited about was linked to this person who rejected me. So you could imagine mentally that was pretty difficult to have like no foundation, all of a sudden one is there, but all of a sudden this new foundation is linked to a person that, you know, you're hurt by. Let's just call it what it was. I was hurt. So there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of whatever, just resistance, It became no longer blissed out. It came, all my wounds were popping up, and I became resentful of the person that, you know, my twin. Um, and that's not obviously fair either because he was in his own world, had no idea any of this was going on anyway. But at the same time, my belief system was a little bit tainted because I just felt like I wanted to go through this incredible experience, but I wanted to do it by myself. And it became clear to me that wasn't a choice. So the further it got, the more I had to let go and surrender and allow myself to go through this experience and accept that it was alongside another person. And of course, after I let go and got through some of that surrender and resistance, I could not have fallen more in love with this person, right? So the whole experience continued, and my entire perspective about my relationship with my twin shifted. But I definitely was resistant at the beginning because I just wanted this incredible experience I was going to be mine, right? So then I get into the new age practices because that seems to be where the twin flame narrative sits. Um, and just to say I got into the new age practices, it's not like I was out there like really like digging into these practices, but that just kind of is the world. Like when these people are doing energy readings, they're using tarot cards, and in that world they'll take you from that tarot card reading to another thing like a Reiki healer or whatever. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad, by the way. What I am saying is that is how I was exposed to the New Age world. And I view spirituality and the New Age world as very, very different. But what I do think is the constant in that is consciousness, right? And so I linked up to that and I stayed true to kind of like my initial interest in astrology. And that was where I really felt comfortable. But I was definitely exposed to all this New Age stuff and it felt like it made sense to me. Um, and man, I really felt like I was starting to create a belief system that not only made sense, but it felt right. And so the longer into my journey I got, this belief system um, became kind of like an attachment. So, I had nothing, no foundation, and I'll get into in later videos about the twin flame journey itself. But the journey basically, in a very short summary, it helps you rid yourself of attachments. And so I had this attachment that I didn't even really know existed about the illusion of my new belief system. And I know that sounds a little confusing, but for someone who didn't have one, all of a sudden it was like I was excited and attached to this new learning, this new belief system. And so I started noticing, if I was in a twin flame Reddit group or any information, it was talking about anything that wasn't aligned to this like new age twin flame narrative. Whether I want to admit it or not, I found myself kind of pushing it away. Like I found myself being like, oh, those people, like they must live a different life than me or whatever. And so I would say that anything that didn't align to that narrative was kind of pushed away. And some could say that on that part of the journey for me, that's exactly what I needed. And that's kind of how I feel is if you would have taken me from where I was at straight to where I'm at now, there's just no way. Like, first of all, there's no way. Second of all, from a human perspective, like that shift just logically, I wouldn't have done it. And I know that. So I believe this was the path that was needed for me. I had to kind of go through the New Age world, see it, attach to it, even though I didn't get deep into it, just understanding that that's kind of like the world I was now living in. And then the moment that, some stuff happened on my journey, it became quite clear to me that the way I was experiencing the New Age community with the twin flame journey, it was actually keeping me stuck. And I'm not going to say that's anybody's fault, and I'm not going to say that that's everybody's experience, but for my path where I needed to go, I found myself seeking community and seeking, to be a part of something as I was going through this crazy experience. And the thing that was easiest to be a part of was the community that sat in the New Age world around my fellow, spiritual awakening people and twins specifically. Um, all of a sudden, it was around, I would say, spring of 2021. And me and my twin, I would say that was basically where like everything blew up. I could feel we were coming closer, and then a bunch of stuff was happening. I was like, okay, obviously, like, there's some. That was the first time where I was like, I don't know if him and I are going to make it to physical union. Um, and that's like kind of the goal for the twin flame journey, since I'm kind of like hopping around. The twin flame journey, which I'll explain in other videos, the goal is for both of you independently to become in union with your own masculine and feminine energy. Okay, so within myself, that's what I was working on. And then both counterparts have to be within union of self in order for you to physically come back together. So at that point, I thought I was in physical union with, or in union with self with my two energies, and I would say I was very close. But it became clear in my outer world that physical union with this person was not likely at this point. And I sat there and watched and waited for spirit's guidance and spirit's kind of like at every step of the journey, I could feel what the next stage was. My gifts are clairsentience and claircognizance. So as things were happening, I would just know my next step, or I would feel what was happening in that experience and what the spiritual meaning behind it was, so I could figure out how to move forward. And in those experiences, it was being shown to me quite clearly that I needed to move on from my twin. And so, again, from a belief system standpoint, I have been integrated into the twin flame community, most of which settles in the New Age world. And at this point, that world is so dead set on talking about, energy reads for where the masculine's at, or energy reads for where the connection is at. And most of them speak a narrative that you are, if you do the work and if you whatever, you end up with your twin in physical union. So that is the narrative that is pushed over and over and over. And I understand that from a, thoughts perspective. That's the way you want to keep your thoughts. That's the way you should communicate. That's the way you speak to your subconscious, your conscious. You can align by speaking the truth into existence, right? Or your wants, your desires. But that narrative was no longer aligning with my physical reality, which again, a big part of this journey. Your intuitive insights are not aligning with the outside reality. So I was sitting there waiting for guidance because this was nothing new, that my external reality was not matching my intuitive insights. And all of a sudden, I got the exact insights that I was asking for, which was to move on from my twin. And I waited, and it wasn't going away. Like, it became very, very clear that that is what I had to do. So I did. And that was super hard. And I'm sure I'll talk about that in a different video. But what happened by doing that is, let's just say, the biggest dark night of the soul, like maybe ever. Because what was really happening in my mind, deep in my heart, I wanted my twin for sure. But the physical reality was making it quite clear that that was likely not going to happen. And I held on faith for sure, but at some point, like, it just becomes pretty crystal clear that, like, too much damage is being done here. And I think that's exactly why I was guided to let go, because I think everyone was under the same impression for my connection. But all I really wanted was for my twin and I to come talk, like, have a conversation. Like, he felt like a best friend. So it just felt so crazy that we would go through this experience and just not even like talk about it. And that is exactly what has happened. We had a full-blown crazy experience together, and we still to this day have not spoken about it. There were decisions made on both ends that kind of contributed to that, but at the same time, when it is dead silence like that, it is all intuitive. And when your intuition is not matching your external reality, and your external, or I guess your entire belief system has been based on a connection, right? Like, I didn't have much of a spiritual practice prior to my connection. So although I view my spirituality as totally separate from, this connection with this man, at the same time, it is also so integrated that my belief system crumbled again. Like, I went from, I know exactly what's happening. I am very spiritually, like, evolved at this point, so I can feel and know what's going on, to what was the point of this journey? Like, if I can't even confirm verbally as a friend with this person that this is what's happening, then was it even real? Why would this happen? Like, why would spirit do this to me? Right? Victim mentality. Did I make this up? And I spiraled to a place where it was pretty rough. Like, I'm not gonna give full details on the internet just because, you know, I just won't. But it wasn't good. It's the worst I've ever seen myself. And it wasn't even about my twin specifically. It was about what just happened to my life, why. If it wasn't about union with this man, then what is the point? Like, what was the point? I did not understand. I was at a pretty dark place. And I would say I went backwards to having no belief system because you basically, from a ego perspective, your life just got flipped upside down. And then the person that kind of has been your catalyst through this, and also your mirror and your friend, as weird as that sounds, because we're not in each other's reality, right? But like that person is now, you are blocking them. You're removing them from your reality. You are being guided to let them go, and you know that you need to do that in order for yourself. That was fine, but then once that's happening, what was the point of this experience? Was this a false twin? Was this a karmic whatever? And I was convinced that I must have just made a huge mistake and it must have just been, a karmic whatever. And I had to sit there and throw basically adult tantrums for a while. I didn't have to do that. I chose to do that, obviously. And during that time it got pretty rough. And then all of a sudden, during that time, when I'm basically like, this was all made up and I'm insane, something really incredible happened where I'm not going to give full details because, it's just, I'm not going to. But I basically, at that point, was finally addressing God at that point. I had had enough of an evolution through my experience where I went from universe at the beginning, where I was so into astrology, universe felt right. Whoever I was addressing, the higher power felt like universe. And then the intimacy and the connection and communication that I was experiencing felt like spirit. It felt like spirits. It felt like my grandmother. It felt like very specific individuals, whether I knew who they were or not, right? It felt like spirits. And I'm not like a medium or anything, so it always felt helpful. It always felt positive. It always felt like the guidance I was getting was moving me forward. And so spirit felt like the right terminology. But for the first time on my journey, when I'm throwing all of that away and begging for answers, I'm now willing to address God. I'm now willing to say God when I'm pissed and when I no longer believe in the journey and throwing adult temper tantrums straight up. And I never thought about that. Of course, I look back now and I'm kind of like fascinated that I didn't notice that. But all of a sudden, when things really got rough, now I'm addressing a higher power as God and I am pissed. And that is when I received a connection with, now I know to be, let's just say I now have a relationship with Jesus that I did not expect. And I struggled with that. It felt paternal. It felt um, like pure love. And it felt like it was disrespectful for me to call it anything else. Whatever the connection I have at this point feels like I have a connection to God. And I'm so, so grateful for that. But that is just, it feels like that would be disrespectful to not call it that at this point. And that was something I did not expect. A lot of the community says spirit, and I still do too. You'll see me flop back and forth. I'm continuing to like work through this and figure out my new belief system, right? And like what that means, and I'm not rushing it, and it's all part of my personal evolution. I just didn't expect to have my evolution go in that direction. Not that I actually, yeah, like let me be honest, I had resistance towards it. Like I know now that I had to go through the new age, kind of like as my introduction almost for my personal path based on, the human being I am and the ego I am and the heart that I have. I had to go that route because that was the only way I would have kind of like dipped my toe in. I had a lot of resistance to the church. I had a lot of resistance, and you know, um, I had just a lot of reasons of why I didn't want to call something God or attach to the church or be a part of a church. And a lot of the New Age teachings um, they resonated, right? Let's just say they resonated. It's so interesting because they kind of don't now. And I didn't notice it at first, but even, you know, at that time I was like pushing everything away from me because I was just like, this is all, you know, not not it. And again, that was around like summer of 2021. And since then, I have had such peace and such intimate connection without any modalities needed. The peace is truly just existing, and it isn't cycling out the way that it used to. And so I really understand, let go and let God more than I ever have before. Like I can feel that. That is what I had to go through, truly. Um, and so yeah, I wanted to share that with people. I hope it doesn't trigger anyone. I'm not trying to push my belief system onto anyone, but I did not expect for the end of my journey to have this incredible connection to God. I knew that the connection I had the whole time, it felt so strong and powerful as it was, but this last awakening was totally different. It just feels totally different. It feels like I am walking with God, and I had to go through a repentance. I had to apologize for pushing this away. I had to, yeah, there's a lot there. I've been working through that for the last few months, and I'm very comfortable with where I'm at now. It's going to keep evolving, I'm sure, but I wanted to share that because that's where I'm at on my journey after 2 years on my twin flame journey. And after loving myself so hard that I walked away from my twin, followed my guidance from spirit, God, to walk away from my twin. It was confirmed to me by my connection that this was my twin. But your twin is allowed to make free will decisions, you and your twin both, and those decisions impact your journey. They do. And obviously you would know that, but your union is not guaranteed ever. Free will is planet Earth has free will. Therefore, if both counterparts rather, if they're not doing the healing and they're not passing their spiritual initiations, then the highest good is going to be done for both parties involved, or for all parties involved, including the collective, right? And so that was really shocking to me. I sat with that for a long time and was just very confused when that happened. But it is real, and I was guided away, and I'm assuming for my highest good, and I'm sure my twin's highest good as well. And I know that that's not a story that I heard very much. I did not hear that story. I did see a lot of people, a lot of divine feminines holding on to divine masculines. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. But if you pay attention to your guidance, because I did not expect to be guided away from my twin, and I was. And not every experience is going to end like that, but just make sure you're not hiding from yourself, um, because that is just an attachment that I would have loved to hide that guidance from myself, because I almost became addicted to like feeling like crap, right? Like almost became addicted to this narrative that maybe this person would come back and maybe they would step up and have the conversation that they should have, and we would at least be able to have this friendship and potentially even a physical union, right? Like I stayed neutral for most of my journey, but you can't help but get attached to this narrative. It's everywhere in the twin flame community. And I think that's why Spirit guided me to talk about mine, because I waited after every interaction with my twin, I waited for guidance from my spirit and God, right? It changed through my journeys. I don't even know who to who was giving me guidance when. I'm sure it was God the whole time. But still that guidance came in and I almost didn't want to listen to it. So just I wanted to put that out there because there may be some divine feminines who are struggling, or masculines too, right? But like if you are struggling with letting your twin go, just take like a week and just cut off all modalities, don't give energy to anything but yourself, right? And like your daily things. But just don't feed into this narrative for like a week and see how that feels. And if it brings you peace, maybe you should try and extend that and focus on yourself and follow your guidance and see what comes in by giving yourself the time and space during that time away from everything. See what guidance comes in. And I'm telling you, it took me breaking in order to get there. And so I'm hoping you guys don't have to break. And if that is your guidance, I'm not projecting onto you. I'm just saying it is possible. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at from a belief standpoint. I know it's going to keep evolving. And I, again, am so, it was unexpected that this is where it ended, but I'm very grateful. I'm very peaceful about it now. And I think I got stuck. I needed to I had one last step that I was in delusion or stuck at. And I think it was because I was attaching to the narrative that like all twins, there's a very strong possibility that you could come back together. So you don't want to give up. And so I sat there and I did not give up because I wanted, if I'm honest, I didn't want to be on this journey alone, right? Like, I wasn't sure what happened after that. There wasn't tons of information after that. So I didn't want to be one of those twins who didn't make it because I didn't really hear much about those twins. Like what happens after that, right? And I realized it's not that you didn't make it. It's that you made it, but your physical union might not have been for the highest good in that moment. And I'm now fully at peace with that. I feel totally connected to my twin in a very different way now. I feel like he's with me all the time, but there's no yearning, longing, whatever. I now have such a direct connection, with God and spirit that my twin is kind of just like, it is what it is. I love my twin unconditionally and always will, but this peace is worth it. This peace is what I was looking for the entire journey. And I got there. So if you need help getting there, please let me know. Um, and yeah, I hope that this video helps anyone who is either struggling with their belief system on the twin flame journey or even on your spiritual path in general. And then again, if you're a divine feminine or masculine and you're struggling with letting go, or if you're struggling with discerning your own guidance, take a breather from the new age stuff for a second and just really like be and see what comes in for yourself, because it took me breaking to just be to then get the guidance to know what to do next. And man, I wish I would have either broke sooner, or I wish I would have just stepped away from it a little sooner. It would have saved me, a lot of mental anguish. So, anyway, that is what today's video is about. And I hope this was helpful. Feel free to comment any thought, and thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. See you on the next video.